8:13, you're watching the morning show here on Global. Good morning, everybody. Tammy Ezer joins us now. She's a marketing expert with ComparaSave.com. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
So what we're talking about are 3 areas where Canadians may be overspending without even realizing it, and they are your home, your credit card, and car insurance. So you're going to break those down one by one for us.
Absolutely.
And tell us how we can save. So let's start with a home and your mortgage. What can you do?
The mortgage is probably the largest household expense for anybody's household. One of the most important things to do is to shop your rate. You get that renewal from the bank and they say, this is, it's been 3 years and it's time to renew your rate. Here's the new rate. And so many people accept that and they say, okay, and they sign on the dotted line. And that's a really big mistake. You have to go online to a site like ComparaSave.com, check the rate, and make sure that you're getting the best rate that you possibly can.
Right.
Speaking of the mortgage, let's say it's a 5-year term. How early can you actually start negotiating with your bank or even others to get a...
Not that far in advance unless you want to pay a penalty, but it's really important, actually, speaking about the term, more so the term of the actual mortgage, it's important to pay attention to that and how often you're paying. For example, you could pay a little bit more each month by paying accelerated bi-weekly. You end up paying over the course of a year like $2,300 more a year, but you can save over the course of a mortgage $55,000.
It's really amazing when you extrapolate that
because
out.
you take off about 2 years over the course of the mortgage. So the last 2, it becomes a 23-year term rather than a 25-year term.
But I wanted to ask you this, because interest rates are so low, is that a good idea right now? I mean, I don't know what the rates are, but people are paying about 3% or 4%. Is it a good idea to rush to pay it off?
It's always a good idea if you can afford it and you can save the money. Absolutely.
Okay, heat and hydro. Can we save there?
Absolutely, you can save there. One of the most important things to do is to put things on timers or get a programmable thermostat to make sure that during the day you're bringing that temperature down a couple of degrees, because why pay to heat it to the full degree if no one's there?
And again, it's those little tiny
They
things
all
that you
help.
can
They
do,
all go to
and
the bottom line. Absolutely.
all add up.
Credit cards, how to avoid high debt?
Most importantly, you should be paying it off as much as possible. So if you can't absolutely pay the minimum balance, you can't do that, or if you can do that and you can pay off the full amount, that's even better. Because most of the time, if you actually end up with paying just that minimum balance over time, you're paying 4 times as much money for what you just purchased than you would have if you paid it off. So you have to keep
Boy,
that
did
in
I
mind.
learn that lesson like a big dope when I was like in my 20s and bought this incredibly expensive pantsuit that I think I paid off for 2 years.
Absolutely. and you have to look at
Never
that.
again.
You have to look at how long it's going to take you to pay it off.
Yeah.
Sometimes what you can do is you can get a credit card, you can transfer a balance for a very low interest rate of say 9.99% just for the first little while, but then it gives you a chance to sort of pay that down. And then you get yourself out of debt.
And one thing I notice is going from one credit card with the same bank, one credit card to another with a lower interest rate, because sometimes you're paying more in interest and also in the fees for a service you may not necessarily need.
Absolutely.
Like a points program that you're not necessarily going to use ultimately.
You're not using the points for, absolutely, for sure. And make sure that you're doing that research and see what type of points. If you're going to have a points card, what kind of points are you going to have that are right for you?
But you have to ask those questions, right? I mean, they're not going to necessarily give you this information.
The bank's not going to pick up the phone and call you and say, so we can save you a whole bunch of money if you transfer to this credit card.
I feel the same way about car insurance. It's the one thing everybody needs, but you don't want to think about it, so you say, okay, that one.
Is a big one because you're right. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about it until you get that renewal in the mail and you go, oh my goodness, it went up again. And that's really the best time to go online and do a search, because you could pay $100 or $1,000 less for the exact same coverage. It's a commodity. And the insurance companies look at each person slightly differently because they look at their past to predict the future. So for the exact same thing, you could be saving thousands of dollars.
Tammy, it takes a little while though, right? You have to set aside some time when you get on the phone.
About 5 minutes.
Just
5 minutes to go online, like I said, a site like ComparaSave.com and fill in. You have to have the information, but it's the standard questions that any insurance company would ask you. It takes about 5 minutes. Worst case scenario is you find out that you can't save money and you've done your due diligence and you know.
So a mortgage, if you change, you have to often pay a penalty. But insurance, are you a free agent throughout the whole year, or do you have a term?
You aren't, but sometimes the difference can actually outweigh. You could have a $300 penalty, but be saving $1,500.
Okay.
Still in your best interest, for sure.
What if you have a big commute? and you're paying a ton of money there.
Interestingly, the commute doesn't have the biggest impact on your rate. People tend to think that it does have an impact, but it's one of the factors that has a smaller impact. It's more the car you drive and where you live that's going to have a greater impact.
Right.
And I don't think you're going to go buy a new car just to save a couple $100s on your
In terms of
car insurance.
other ways to save money, do you
Yeah.
think it's a misconception that if you give up that latte, that daily latte, that you'll actually accumulate enough money to save something significant?
I actually think if you do the math, you could do a lot with that latte money.
Yeah.
Think about it, $5 a day. That's $25 a week. That's a lot of money over the course of the year. You could, for a cheap deal, you could go to Cuba for a week.
That is such a brilliant analogy that's been around for such a long time now, that latte factor, where you have to think about that, and because that really applies to everything that we've been talking about right now. It's
Sure.
a few bucks here, a few bucks there,
Bring
some
your
more
lunch.
significant than others. Bring your lunch, which I do now. I'll make my coffee or get it from McDonald's.
Like McDonald's where it's cheap.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But you have to be diligent. I mean, yesterday I spent some time going back and forth and found a hotel and saved $500, the same room, the same place, everything exactly the same, except between different places.
Absolutely.
It's $500.
Well, that's the thing. There's so many tools available online. It's easy. You don't have to even leave the house. You don't have to call around to lots of different places. Just go online, do a little bit of searching, and you can save lots and lots of money.
Yep. Thank you so much, Tammy Ezer. She's a marketing expert with CompareSafe.com. Great advice. Thank you. 8:19. We'll be right back.